talk about today. Oh, my goodness gracious. What a crazy weekend in the world of football. And then after that, we'll talk with Ryan in Sacktown about the Sacramento Kings. They open up a long homestand tonight against arguably the worst team in the NBA in Charlotte. All right, so we got a lot going on. We are brought to you by New Works Plumbing of Sacramento. Locally owned for over 20 years, New Works has a fix for you. For your plumbing needs and repairs, just go to sackserviceplumbing.com or call the number on your screen. And remember, if you have an emergency in the middle of the night, no problem. They'll be there with their 24/7 service. For all of your plumbing needs and repairs, just go to sackserviceplumbing.com. Coming up in just a moment, we will talk about, again, an absolutely crazy weekend in the National Football League with Sean Salisbury. That's coming up in just a moment. And if you didn't like this past weekend in the National Football League, you don't like NFL football because that was absolutely crazy. Sean, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. Good to be on with you today.
I don't even know where to start, all right? I mean, you've been in a lot of wacky football games. 33-0 at the half. You know, the Colts over the Vikings. And the Vikings, to me, are such a difficult team to figure out. But as Bill Parcells says, you are what your record says you are, and their record's pretty damn good. But that was just, I mean, Sean, you never see that in the NFL. Obviously, we had never seen that before. That's as crazy as it gets.
I think 2 times in the last 100 and something times that somebody's been up by that amount, that somebody's come back, and both, I think, are Kirk Cousins. Listen, I'm getting ready to call a high school football All-American game, not call it, call the plays for one of the Houston Nuts offense, and I'm walking into the Star, and they got outside a huge TV, Grant, and we're walking in, you know, all the fans are watching. Jerry's got, as Jerry does, everything's big over there, and it's 30-0, and we're laughing walking in saying the Colts are beating the Vikings 30-0, and then we go in and have our game. I come out and it says Vikings won. I said, get the hell out of here. And they won. It is really hard. It's hard to come back from that. It's harder to lose it. It really is. I mean, that may put a damper on Jeff Saturday's future chances as head coach in Indy, but it was there was a few things that we're about to say we never seen anything like it over the weekend, and that's just one of them this past weekend. Yep. And the Vikings, Grant, listen, I know what they're 11-3 now, I believe is the record, and people do not want to give them credit. So do we credit them for when they get beat, it looks ugly, but when they win, they find a way to win close games. So is it a negative or a positive? I guess we're going to find out in January which one's more important.
Well, I know one thing. You know, me being a Giants fan, if they get in, they're going to play San Francisco in all likelihood. I'd much rather play Minnesota than San Francisco. To me, the Giants, a team like that would have no chance of beating San Francisco. I think matchups are important. But Minnesota, their whole season would tell me that even if I'm an inferior team, I have a chance to be in the game in the fourth quarter. And Sean, you've been in tons of games. You know, when an inferior team hangs around and hangs around and hangs around, eventually they're going to beat the better team. And we see it all the time. So if I'm a team in the NFC, Sean, I'm not licking my chops to go play in Minnesota, but I'd much rather play Minnesota than San Francisco. I'll tell you that.
Oh, or Philly. There's no question.
Yeah, but Philly's got to bye the first week. That's why leaving them out.
You bet the first weekend. I mean, at any point in the playoffs for me. I'm with you 100%. I know this. And when you get to the playoffs, they're all pretty good. So you're not going to get many inferior teams. And you leave it close like that, you'll put yourself in a bad – but you can't keep hanging on and getting a little bit lucky and some skill too. Eventually it gets you, and it will get them if they keep playing like this. But they are 11-3, and they are a threat.
Yeah. All right. I mean, you're a Raiders fan. Bill Belichick can't think for the guys on the field in the middle of a play. Everybody's saying, gee, that should never happen to a Bill Belichick coach team. That shouldn't happen to anybody's team in the NFL. It's the freaking National Football League. It's the best players, in the world. coaches can't think for the guys in the middle of a play. I mean, I don't even know how to explain that, Sean.
I have a hard time believing that Bill Belichick didn't, I mean, that they weren't talked to at some point about what to expect from this play smart. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but I've talked to plenty of players over the course of 20-some years, 30 years that have played for Bill, and I have a hard time believing that this stone wasn't at least unturned before the kickoff and when they got the ball back of how to play it. We got a chance to win in overtime, be smart. I can't fathom, but even if he didn't, Grant, I'm not sure you will ever see. And it's not just one guy, it's two guys, the running back and the receiver. I'm not sure whether it's Jacoby Myers or the running back that you're ever going to see a more low IQ football decision. Self-inflicted. I'm said seventh graders would not have done this.
It's almost like they thought they were trailing.
Right. That was my thing. I honestly believe they went in thinking that when the Raiders scored the touchdown, that the Raiders went up. Yet the handoff should have told you. And the timing in the middle of the run, the clock went to 0. And I don't know how you go. And they ran a couple plays. How in the huddle, even if you're breaking the huddle, if you're the quarterback, if you're Mac Jones, you're not saying, guys, be smart, don't do anything stupid because we're going to beat this team in overtime if we don't get a chance. And to see the run and then the pitch, first off, what do you think in pitching it? And then to try and run backwards and throw it 15, 20 yards across the field, a non-quarterback. Listen, I'm a Raider fan and I'm glad it happened, but I can't fathom that you're going to find a more, it was an accident. How? How does that happen? It is exactly like two dudes broke the huddle and felt like they were down. That's what you do when the game's over and you're down 6 points. You got to score. You're running the Stanford cow play. That's not what you do. The first guy that's about to tackle you and you go down. Play for the snap, the coin toss, and let's play overtime. And the Patriots are in a playoff hunt. They're in a battle for the playoffs. And here we are now, and the Raiders, who are mathematically still alive, how in the world you do that? It's as low IQ a football decision by two players you will ever see.
All right. I know you're not Jalen Hurts in his body, but he has now got a sprained shoulder, and I don't believe he's officially out this week. The game is on Saturday, but he has a strained shoulder. Should say sprain or strain, call it whatever the hell you want. How could that impact the Eagles, Sean?
I wouldn't play him if it's not close to 100%.
Right.
I would not play him.
Not until the playoffs, right?
Right. I get to a point where the one seed we want to keep. I got to trust my backups ready. I got to trust that my backup who's it? Gardner Minshew? Is that right?
I think so.
Am I right? Is it Minshew?
So.
I'm thinking of.
I'll tell you right now.
I was watching some old highlights of Minshew in college, and I'm pretty sure it's Gardner Minshew. I thought that they, when he went from Jacksonville, I could have swore he was in. It
is Gardner Minshew.
Philly.
It is
right.
Yep.
So and he's smart.
Yep.
He's smart. He's won games. Gardner Minshew can be just fine if I'm not risking, especially for a guy who runs the football on a regular basis in Jalen Hurts. If Jalen Hurts has any kind of soreness at all this week, Gardner Minshew is my quarterback, and I trust that I can still win with him. He will not see the field if he's hurt. And does it affect him? Sure, because you lose the option of running that he has. Yep. But Minshew's a viable option throwing the football.
All right, so it's Dallas this week. Again, I'm watching that game yesterday. Dallas lost that game 5 times yesterday. Okay, they really did. They had the big lead. Then in the fourth quarter, Trevor Lawrence fumbles the ball. It's under 2 minutes. You make a first down, the game's over. Dallas is not able to make a first down, but defensively they're fine. They have Jacksonville backed up on a third down with very little time. They allow, I believe, a 14-yard gain to put them in the field goal range, and then Dak makes, the pick 6. I've said this all along, and I'm going to continue to say it. I personally feel the biggest question mark in the playoffs is their quarterback. I am still not sold or confident, if I'm a Cowboys fan, that Dak Prescott is going to be able to deliver in the biggest of moments. That, to me, is what I think is a question mark when I look at the Cowboys.
And understandably so, Grant. So let me pose this question, too, along with that. the Cowboys are doing what the Cowboys seem to do every year. Something along the line costs them. So I'd like to know this. Why do we give the Dallas Cowboys more credit for being a team that does this on that's up and down as well? And we tell the Vikings that they suck because they play close games and win in the fourth quarter. Well, not you and me. I'm talking about, well, what's the difference? You tell me since 1995, what's the difference between the two teams? What's the difference? What's the difference between Dak Prescott and Kirk Cousins right now?
Great point. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm sorry to say this. I'll take Kirk Cousins in a playoff game right now over Dak Prescott. That's just me.
Okay, then let's go through the team. You got your dynamic Micah Parsons. I got my dynamic Justin Jefferson, who's every bit as dominant at his position as Micah Parsons is at his. I got Dalvin Cook when he's right. He can match up with either one of those backs on their team. You start to look around. So player for player, I mean, I don't trust Kellen Moore calling plays more than I do Kevin O'Connell. I mean, Kevin's new at it, but what's wrong with they score? The advantage is that Dan Quinn's the defensive coordinator, and I think it was Ed Donatel maybe in Minnesota, and they're struggling their ass off to get stops. So that may be it. But when I look at it, everybody, the Cowboys. What the hell have the Cowboys done any different than the damn Minnesota Vikings this year? Why is one record more impressive than the other? Because you know what, Grant? You still wonder, is Prescott going to come through when it matters in a big game? And you still say the same thing about Cousins. So what's the difference?
Well, the difference right now is Dallas winning to Minnesota earlier this year, and what was it, 41-3 or whatever the hell their ass kicking was? I mean, in the head-to-head competition, now that was a huge week for Minnesota. They had just come off that crazy overtime win in Buffalo. But, Sean, you played in the NFL. I mean, you can't go, you got to be ready to play on you very rarely are going to have what you would call a letdown when the Cowboys are coming in, regardless of what year it is. You've been in the league. I could see a letdown if Detroit's coming in, but not the Cowboys.
And nobody better have a letdown with Detroit now. They'll kick your ass.
I know, but I'm talking about you when you play. You know what I'm saying?
You're exactly right, Grant. And I'm not disagreeing with you about the Cowboys or the Vikings. Yep. My point is overall, the national thought process is they'll talk and kiss the Cowboys' ass till the cows come home, but the Vikings are an afterthought at 11-3 as well. You get my point? And so I don't know. Hell, I don't know which team's going to show up. I just damn well know this, that they took their ass kicking, and I can promise you this, the Cowboys aren't 37 points better than the Minnesota Vikings.
Hell no.
So that's exactly right. So the truth is, Grant, and I think you're with me, I don't trust either one of them in a monster game when it matters if you got an efficient defense and a quarterback on the other side. But I know they're both capable. So don't sell me on the Cowboys and then tell me how the Vikings suck just because the Cowboys beat them. And sure as hell don't sell me on the Vikings because the Cowboys lost to Jacksonville, which damn near may come and win this division in the South. So they both got their issues and strengths. The question is, who's got a bigger set of balls in January? And we're going to find out because both are going to be there.
The Giants in the draft last year used their first overall pick. They had 2 picks. They had a 5 and a 7, and they took Kayvon Thibodeaux out of Oregon, the 5th pick. And I've been kind of critical of him, but last night he was special. He was a difference maker in the game last night. It's almost like his arrival game, that he arrived on the big stage, Sunday Night Football, and put on an absolute show. What impressed you about him last night?
More than just one move, and it looked like that was the guy. That's why they drafted him, which you saw last night. Big, long, active, involved in every part of the game. And at Grant, it almost felt like he took the game over, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Did it not to you? And so, and in truth, we are gotten to the point, whether it's quarterback or edge rusher or top 5 or top 10 pick, we give them zero chance to settle in as a football player. Because where they're supposed to all come in and, didn't you see what Micah Parsons did? Yeah, but every dude's not friggin' Micah Parsons. Did you see what Chase, what Jamar Chase did? Yeah, but he had Joe Burrow. Every dude, the majority of them don't impact like that. And, he's gotten better and as he stayed. Now it's almost like the light switch went on with what they were trying to get accomplished and defensively. And for him, if that's the dude, he'll be special. Now, you don't want the guy who's special 1 week as we go on and then 3 weeks disappears. But I like the strides he's made, and yes, critical. But if that's who he is, is about the time they turn it on. He's young. It's not and he's active, and sometimes rookies go away late in the season. Maybe it's reversed for him, Grant, where he starts to kick in and he thinks, okay, now I'm starting to understand how these guys play me. We got to be a little bit more patient, especially with those guys that have a chance to be difference makers. And he was special in the field last night. There is no question.
All right, everyone's going to talk about a strip sack, the fumble recovery, and the touchdown. That was great. You know what impressed me last night about Thibodeaux? As a rookie, there were 2 plays that he made downfield. One was 20 yards down the field on the other side of the field from where he initially lined up. That means the guy is playing his ass off on every play and did not give up on any play. I always like to see those type of players who are rushing the passer a lot, and then they're downfield, okay, making a big tackle 20, 25 yards behind the line of scrimmage because they didn't give up on a play. I love that stuff.
Yeah, I do too, Grant. And I judge a guy. Don't tell me how good you are when the activity's coming to you. I also want to know how good you are when the activity's away from you as a defensive player. Oh, they didn't run the sweep this way, so I can kind of sift through and lollygag to get over there. Somebody else will make the tackle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're the point of attack, it's like, oh, okay, now I got to step up and do my thing. How are you? It's like a receiver. When you don't feel like you're going to get the ball, do you run off that line and go do something? Or when you're not involved in catching balls early in the game, do you still go block your ass off to spring running your running backs for an 80-yard run that may be the difference in a friggin' game? Yes, I am with you. Just like when I judge teams, I'm judging the Texans players or these teams like the Raiders that are fighting and scratching or the Denver Broncos. I'm judging those players every bit as harshly, if not worse, at this time of year, because I want to know how many of these guys have decided their golf clubs are in their trunk and they ain't showing up anymore. And Thibodeaux, you're right. What are you doing when you're not the point of focus on a defensive play and you got to go chase? That's how we'll judge what kind of effort you're giving on a regular basis. And no coach should have to teach a player effort. Last night, they didn't have to teach him squat.
All right, I look at a season of 17 weeks. Most teams are going to go through ups and downs. The Lions got off to a bad start. Now nobody wants to play them. The Giants got off to a great start. They went into their lull. They bounced back with a big win last night. If the Giants and the Lions both make the playoffs, would you say one of those 2 coaches has done a better job with their teams? Or would you say if the Giants and the Lions get in, they would both be equal? All right. They would both be equal in terms of the success they've had in their first year.
So, Grant,
Campbell, not first year, but you know what I mean.
You cut out at the end. So what was your question to me?
My question was, I'm sorry. My question was the Lions and the Giants, assuming that they both make the playoffs, and there's a good chance they will. Would you say that both coaches have done equal jobs? In other words, turning around bad teams. Would you put one above the other in terms of job well done?
Right. Only reason I'd put the Giants a little bit ahead is because this is Brian Daboll's first year with them.
Okay.
That's why, to make that impact and to get buy-in early. People know what Dan Campbell's been selling, and it's finally starting to pay off, and I love it. And both have done. You can make if this continues and Dan's team wins 2 of the next 3 games, how's he not considered for coach of the year, right?
I agree.
And I think that we've talked about Brian Daboll. You know how I feel about him. He comes in, and one of the greatest things he did was instead of trying to micromanage everything, he's allowed Mike Kafka and their defensive staff and Mike on offense to do their thing. And that's hard to do for a first-year rookie head coach who's used to play calling and to relinquish that and trust that the guy he hired is – and I like it. And Dan Campbell, what a smart move by the Detroit front office to say, slow down now. Let's see where this goes. Friggin' Goff's playing at a Pro Bowl level.
Yes, he is.
He really is. And I'm going to tell you something, Grant, and for my money, and I'm not bullshitting when I say this, I know Buffalo, and I know Kansas City and San Francisco and Philadelphia. In the NFC, if you get into the playoffs and you look down and you say, we're drawing the Lions, I don't give a shit if it is the 49ers. I don't.
Right.
And I don't care. I don't care who it is. If you get them, you're careful. And in the AFC, now they're no longer trying to get in. They're battling for the 1 seed. If you draw Cincinnati,
yep,
you better be prepared for you because their defense is playing really good football. The quarterback will bury you and put his foot on your throat, and they has got as deep a weapons as there is on any offense in the NFL. So those 2 teams for me are dangerous. And Grant, I got a question to ask you about the refereeing.
Yeah,
I don't know how Washington, when you look at a referee and he says you're on and you're good, and you get him to on, and then he calls the illegal formations beyond me. I'm going to get back to this. And Vikings call in a game, all those things. How we can't review something that's the difference in a game. If you had a red flag and it's outside of 2 minutes, to be able to throw a flag and say, or even if it's not, it won't slow the game down.
How about the Nick Bosa roughing the passer penalty?
That's
on
my
Thursday?
point. Why that and when people say, well, it needs to even out, there are 10 penalties, we only had 5. That's not the case, because dumbass teams get penalized all the time. Good teams don't. So that's not what I'm asking for. It's when those penalties hit. He looks right at him and asks the ref if he's good. The ref says you're good, and then he calls it, illegal formation. Or listen, if it's 3rd and 2 and you get a roughing the passer, and it's an automatic first down or a 3rd and 9. That could possibly change the game for people. It does all the time. So we got to get this right. I don't care about evening out the score. Oh, that's a makeup call. Screw makeup calls.
No.
Get it right, because the time, you never know if it's the second quarter call, the fourth quarter call, a 5-yard penalty, a 10-yard holding penalty, a pass interference call. Why can't you review if somebody's grabbing the dude's jersey on a go route? I mean, if a guy lines up off sides, hey, he was 3 yards off sides. We can't review it. Screw you. I got a red flag. Yes, you can. They're all judgment calls. That's the one thing we still don't get right, the review process. We still don't get it right.
All right. Somebody wants to know, BB50, what's your take on Brock Purdy's play?
Exactly what I told you it was going to be. Let me take a couple weeks to watch how he continues to evolve. He's not getting his team hurt. He's making big plays when they're there. He understands the concept of not putting his defense in a bind, and he's making enough plays, and you can see his confidence growing. If Jimmy Garoppolo comes back, and I love Jimmy, if he comes back healthy in mid-January and the 49ers keep playing like this, Jimmy doesn't get his job back I'm talking about in this January. Now, if all of a sudden he goes down, he's having a bad game, you bring him in, okay. But the way Brock Purdy's playing and the way they're playing, judging from mediocre play that I've seen it a lot of times this year, you're not telling me because Prescott is in the game and Purdy and the 49ers are playing the Cowboys, I'd still take the 49ers in the game with Brock Purdy. I'm starting to gain a lot of trust on mechanically, poise, decision-making. Now, he'll run into some adversity, but how he's handling it is impressive. Yeah, they're still a legitimate Super Bowl threat with Brock Purdy at quarterback, and they're still very dangerous because it looks like the kid gets it. Whether that's next year, I'm not worried about that. The way they're playing now, I would not make a change. The guy's playing really good football.
Sean, at the quarterback position, I've always evaluated the position this way. I always am more concerned about the plays that a quarterback does not make as opposed to the ones that they do make. And I'm going to go to Zach Wilson. There was a lot of good in the loss against Detroit, but his interception was just one of those plays where you're like, that's what, to me, is keeping him here instead of up here.
Grant, it's going to keep him from being a star in the league.
That's right.
He throws for 317 yards. Listen, here's what he does in a nutshell. I've studied him hard from his college to now.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to make a throw like Jay Cutler. Now Cutler used to do this, right? Cutler's similar, Grant. And the reason why I say it is I'm talking about the arm and when you watch them throw, you're like, good gracious. He's going to make a throw on like a seam route, and he's done it. Or a hole shot where you're like, oh my gosh, before the safety gets there, like a cover 2 hole shot, too deep, and he rips it 120 miles an hour. And they're going to make a throw where the announcer's going to say, dear Lord, that guy, that's why you drafted him where you drafted him. Here's the biggest problem with Zach Wilson now, and if he doesn't get it fixed, he will not sustain being a starter or a star in this league. He does, and you're welcome for the answer, BV50. Thank you. He does not make common plays,
especially in New York. They'll kill him in New York.
Right.
The media will be relentless.
You can play a long time and have a lot of success. Common plays, and when people see, when I just say what comes to your mind with Patrick Mahomes, you know what people say, Grant? Oh, off schedule, spectacular, does it all. But you know what Patrick Mahomes still does great? He makes the common shovel pass, curl route, flat route. He makes the throw. Burrow, Brady, Breeze, Manning, Warren Moon, make the common play. And then when the game's on the line, Josh Allen, you yank something out of your ass, doing something that the normal human can't do. You're an alien. But the guys who can't make the common play get you killed, whether it's a decision, the guy's sitting in the hole, you can't throw it there. And because you trust your arm so much, you still throw it there. You can't do it. Until Zach Wilson makes the common play, the uncommon play will not be enough.
Boy, that's very well said. Spot freaking on. And, the Jets are still hopeful of making the playoffs. You talked about the Lions. You talked about the Bengals. Are you a big believer in how a team is playing at the very end of the year when they enter the playoffs? Is that important to you?
It is, Grant. It's not for me so much important of momentum. I don't believe in game-to-game momentum because it stops. It's different personnel. When people say, well, they got game-to-game momentum, then you run into the 49ers defense and they knock the piss out of you and you say, well, there's that. So am I supposed to, once that happens, say, well, there went my momentum? I'm bigger on the game-to-game confidence, the believability that you say, like what Detroit's going through. They're not there yet, but they're close. They line up every week, and in the past, what Detroit's expected, what they've hoped to do, Grant, was win. Be competitive. Now when they show up, you know what they're saying when they walk out that tunnel? They're saying, this other team wants no friggin' part of us. That's how they're feeling. So it's not necessarily momentum, but it is that confidence that goes to the next week. And then guess what happens? Then in that game, you start to build that game momentum. Confidence is everything. Matter of fact, as Dan Fouch told me a long time ago when I asked him, hey, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit. And when you believe your own brilliance, and whether it's bullshit, you start to buy in. Hell, sometimes you can fool your damn self, Grant. You know what I mean? And Detroit's playing good football, but teams like that, yes. Yep. I think the Cincinnati Bengals are as dangerous as any team in the NFL. I do, right now. And I think they can beat anybody.
All right. I think one of the best stories this year at the quarterback position has been Geno Smith. But when you talk about Detroit, and you talked about how Jared Goff is playing his ass off, this is a guy that just a few years ago took a team to the Super Bowl and then really was run out of Los Angeles. They ran him out of L.A. They gave up a lot to get Stafford, and it proved to be the correct move. They won a Super Bowl. And Goff goes to Detroit, and in his first year was terrible. What has turned his game around? What is it when you look at him week to week? What is it about him that impresses you the most, Sean?
Grant, I talked to a guy who's a really not only connected, but has great feel of the NFL and evaluation process of at that position and other positions. And when you just talk about flat out spinning it, he told me, and I know this, but he was validated. He goes, if you're talking about guys, if you put on a pair of shorts and T-shirt, Grant, and just went out and threw it, he's going to throw it as good as most of the guys in the league. He's in the upper echelon of guys. Now, there's a big difference between being a thrower and a quarterback. Big difference. And so that what he's done now, Grant, he's become a quarterback. I'm not so sure that his failures, and he went to a Super Bowl, but the perceived failures in Los Angeles that made them go get Stafford, and it paid off for them. They won a Super Bowl. I'm not sure that those perceived failures didn't kind of him start to question himself, and we're going to Detroit, and everybody thought, well, in a couple of years he'll be gone anyway. They're going to draft the number one. He's played well enough for them not to have to draft a quarterback next year and to get a new contract. I think what it comes down to, it's such a fragile position confidence-wise, Graham. There's never been a question if he could throw it. And you have two ways to go when you go through what he went through. Super Bowl, then the next year, getting beat, and everybody saying, well, it's the quarterback. Is you can wilt and believe what everybody's saying about you.
Yep.
And that they've quit on you. Because when they get rid of you, when they traded for Stafford, Sean McVay believed they couldn't win a Super Bowl anymore. They could get there, but they couldn't get over the top. That's why you do it. Goes to Detroit, a team that's floundering around. It would be easy to call it, just say, I'm going to put up the numbers. I'm not going to be here long. And to kind of wilt. And what impressed me the most is and after last year, hell, he was getting a maligned.
Yes, he was.
He found a guy who believed in it. Found a guy who believed in him. They've got players there. I'm going to tell you, Geno Smith's going through the same thing. The believability that somebody trusts that when they call you're our guy. And even Dan Campbell last year said, Goff's got to play better. And he's played better since. So I've seen guys go both ways. And I'm proud of Jared Goff because it would have been easy to just say, I'm going to get paid somewhere. I'm putting up numbers. And now we're not looking at him as a numbers guy. He's starting to develop that. Now we'll see how far it goes, but develop that almost the chip on his shoulder that works to his advantage as opposed to pouting about that the coach didn't like. Oh, well, move on to the next one. There's 32 of these damn guys. And failure does not mean a lifetime sentence. Some allow it to. Jared Goff hasn't. He belongs in the Pro Bowl in the NFC. He just, not the Pro Bowl anything. He's played well enough for us to say he is a big reason why that the Detroit Lions have a chance to make the playoffs. And I'm happy for him, because I like to see guys that are pushed to the brink and hit their rock bottom in their career and find a way to pull themselves out of it and become a player again. There's a reason why he was drafted first.
Well,
He can
you and I
throw it. Right.
always talk about a guy that I've known for a long time, and I know you're close to it, Rich Gannon. I mean, I always use him as one of those examples. Sean, this is an interesting question. Tom Brady looked awful again. The Bucs had a 17-0 lead and blew the game, and Brady in the second half was as bad as I've ever seen. Do you buy into this at all with what's going on off the field with him this season?
Grant, the last 2 weeks, Brady's probably those are probably the back-to-back. It's either the last two or one, and then 2 of the last 3 weeks, whatever it's been. It runs together at the holiday season. Brady's played as poorly in certain situations, in clutch situations, that I've never seen him do that. You know what? Brady ain't giving up 20. A team with Brady's not going 27 unanswered, where he lays it on the ground, throws a pick in his own, all those things. Here's what I'll say to that. They may tell you no, and Tom's still got plenty in him. I mean, hell, he's still been playing. Most of the year, he protected the ball as well as anybody. Grant, if you're not affected, the mere mortal, most of us would probably damn, you're going through it's hard. You got kids, you're 45. A lot of it's, well, you're not spending time. Why'd you come back? All the questions people are giving you, you got no privacy. I would say the other way. How in the hell does it not affect you? I would. You got to be. Now, we look at Brady as inhuman at the 22 or 23-year career and how good he's been. But good gracious, to me, it just shows, whether he admits it or not, there's no way when you walk off that field, that's not. I've been through a divorce. Now, I'm not Tom Brady.
Right.
There's things about that things that still affect you because you feel like you failed at something, regardless if it's better that you moved on. I get that. But of course, I think it would be the human who wasn't affected by this that I'd look at and say, how the hell can you do this and not be affected a little bit by it? And this is a good point. I've said it. He's still playing at a high level. He's still going to get his, the numbers aren't going to look the same, but he's still in the playoffs. I trust Brady if they're in to scare people, but he's 45 years old. 23. This is what, year 23 or 22?
It's unbelievable.
So I get it, but yeah, Grant, come on. At this point in time, even the mere mortal, the guys that are immortal, it appears like Brady, it's got to affect you. I haven't talked to Tom about it, but I'd be shocked if it doesn't. Then you're probably not human. Is what I'll say.
All right, Daniel Jones. I would agree. I think Daniel Jones has had an outstanding year, considering that if you look at his wide receivers, the vast majority of football fans in the country wouldn't be able to name one receiver on the Giants. Okay, their receiving core has been completely decimated. It wasn't very good to begin with. The offensive line has had 9 guys playing on it this year. All right, they've lost their right tackle, they've lost their center, they've lost guards. And Daniel Jones, I think his biggest improvement this year, Sean, he's taking care of the football, and the Giants always are in close games. And like yesterday, no turnovers, right? That's going to win you football games. But you're the guy that studies this position. I don't. I only use my eyes. I think the guy has had a tremendous season for the Giants.
Goes back to another thing, and you could throw him into the Goff, Geno Smith categories, improved players. Grant, I can't begin to tell. I'll tell you, in my career, when I knew a guy believed in me, they had every opportunity to run him out of the building this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
They did. They could have. Brian Dable could have come in and said, "I don't want that guy. Let me go get another." He could have brought in Mitch Trubisky and ran Daniel Jones out because he was with Trubisky as a backup. I'm a big believer in it's in any of our jobs. When you know that somebody that above you, a subordinate, believes in you and shows it, not fake, but really transparent about it, it shifts your paradigms. I believe he's had that shift. I do with Kafka and Brian Dable. Coaching matters, but Grant, it's simple, and you hit it, but it bears repeating. The top reason why is, unlike a guy who turns it over more than anybody in the league, Daniel Jones the last couple of years, he's protecting the ball, and when you protect the ball at that position, you have a chance in every game. When you're not turning it over, you have a chance in most game, if not every game. He's protecting the ball and being smarter, and it looks like he's a little bit more confident. And if you're talking about just improved, Goff I knew could throw it. Geno Smith, he's got to be in consideration for most improved player in the league for a guy who's been starting and shifted it. He's a skilled guy. but confidence goes a long way, believability. And when you learn how to protect the football, things change and you get new contracts and people get paid. When you turn the ball over, you don't last long in the league at that position.
Sean, great stuff, buddy. I look forward to getting you ready for the holidays on Friday. We'll have a nice little holiday edition of the show, and you have a great week, my friend.
Great to be back with you, brother. Thank you as always.
All right, great stuff. Sean Salisbury right here on YouTube Live. Hey, we're also brought to you by Foster's and Paws, and I invite you to go to their website. They really do great things, all right? They are a group of passionate animal advocates. They work hard to save lives, and they understand that rescue is hard. You know, a lot of these animals are often abandoned by the humans they trusted, and hey, they create a relationship and a bond with each of the animals that come into their care. They primarily focus on those vulnerable dogs in shelters, and you know, they really do look at every family and every animal as individuals. They work and they teach children at a young age how to treat animals with respect that will have lifelong benefits. They're looking for adopters, donors, and fosters. Just go to the website on your screen, fostersandpaws.org/adopt. All right, good stuff with Sean Salisbury. We're going to talk some Sacramento Kings basketball with Ryan in Sacktown. How was your weekend, buddy?
It was great, Grant. Thank you for asking. Great stuff with Sean, by the way.
Oh, man, I love Sean. He's great. Boy, the Kings, they win those back-to-back games on the road, so they come home feeling great. And, boy, when we got to be careful here because you've always said, and a lot of people say the Kings play to the level of their opponent. There's really no excuse for the Kings to lose any of these games coming up this week. I mean, the table is set as well as you can to really get some momentum going right now.
Certainly, Grant. Yeah, the next 3 games should definitely be wins for the Kings. Coming home, coming off 2 wins in a row. You know, tonight you do have to be a little careful. Sometimes you can have that hangover after a long road trip with the first game at home. But, you know, they should, by all accounts, beat Charlotte tonight. But, again, Charlotte gave Denver a run last night.
Yeah, they did.
115-119. So the Kings need to come out and not play to the level of their opponent.
Charlotte, then the Lakers without Anthony Davis. Shocking that he would be hurt again. Then Washington. Then Washington. And then the schedule gets difficult. You have Denver and Denver, back-to-back home games. Then you have Utah, then at Memphis and at Utah. But these next 3 games, to me, are wins. Charlotte, the Lakers, and Washington, they've got to be wins to me. Again, no Anthony Davis for who the hell knows how long.
Yeah, they're games that have to set the foundation because then you're going into a stretch of 4 games against playoff teams. 3 at home, obviously. It's kind of a weird schedule with Denver back-to-back at home. And then you're going to see Jokic 2 nights in a row. Sabonis better get ready because that is going to be a tough assignment. But these 3 games is where they can get that momentum and get right on offense and, you know, work the defensive end a little bit and maybe get some rest for those guys too headed into the latter stretch of the home stretch.
Great point right there. You know, it's interesting when you look at, again, we keep on talking about this, right? But you look at the standings and how bunched up everybody is in the West. It's absolutely unbelievable, and they fluctuate so much. You've got Memphis at 19-10, New Orleans at 18-11, but then you get to Sacramento at 16-12. So they're only 2.5 games out of first. But right now, Golden State is in 11th, all right? The Kings are 2.5 out of first and 2.5 from 11th. And, for instance, you know, let's look at the Kings at 16-12 in 5th, Portland 17-13 in 6th, followed by 18-14 the Clips. The Jazz are 17-15, Dallas and Minnesota 15-15. This is absolutely bonkers in the West right now.
It's unreal. I can't remember the last time I've seen, we've talked about this, a conference this logjam this late into the season, even though we haven't hit the All-Star break. But that's why these 6 games at home are so important because you can gain traction against the guys ahead of you, but then you can also get some gimmies to start the road or start the home stretch out and get that momentum that they need. But, you know, 2 games out of the 10th spot and 2.5 out of first, that's weird material. You know, that's a weird place to be. But Grant, it does give the Kings a reason to play every night. Every game is meaningful, and that's the first time every game's been meaningful this early or late into the season for a long time in Sacramento.
All right, so here's the question of the day. Is it that cold indoors, Ryan, or did you just not pay your heating bill? What's the deal going on with your wardrobe right now?
Yeah, it is that cold in my house right now, legitimately. So the wife has the space heater in the bedroom, so I'll be heading in there after this show.
Oh my God. Well, again, the Kings tonight taking on the Hornets, and it's a back-to-back for the Hornets, and that's always an advantage. Again, I don't think there's any way the Kings lose the game tonight. I know they played at the level of their opponent. I get all of that. I don't see any way. I'd be shocked if you and I are having a conversation tonight on the post-game show and we're talking about a Kings loss. And by the way, I will be on right here on YouTube Live. We will be on right after the game, but I don't see it happening. I really don't.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. I don't, Grant. I don't think it's going to be a Kings loss, but I'm a little eerie. The line's 10 points. I don't see the Kings possibly winning by 10. I think it's going to be a little bit of a slow start, and then Charlotte, may make a little bit of a run, but 10's a lot. But it should be a
10's a
win.
lot.
Wait, let's. Oh, go
It's a lot, but
ahead.
Denver did. I mean, they did play last night in
They
Denver.
did play last night, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's not an easy back-to-back, travel-wise. But I would be more shocked at the temperature in my house, like you said, remaining the same after I get off, than the Kings losing today. So
I mean, you
the
could
Kings
turn the
should
heat
get
up a
this
little
done.
bit, right?
You're gonna have to talk to my wife about that.
Well,
It's
I'm
it's
not going
prime
to.
time right
I will.
now.
Just so you know, I will not be talking to your wife about that. That's something you would have to discuss. But I can now see what
Yeah,
happens in your household. It's like, no, honey, we're not turning the heat on. Put on a jacket. Put on a sweater. That's what happens, right?
and
Okay.
ironically, I'm the guy that's always hot. So,
Oh,
anyways.
oh man. So it should be fun tonight. Again, we'll be on right after the game. We'll be talking Kings and the Hornets coming up at about roughly 9:15, or excuse me, 9:15, 7:15, right? Well, I'm trying to think what time's the game.
7 o'clock.
9:15 your time. 9:15, 9:30. I'm on the wrong time zone here. 9:15, 9:20, 9:25 Pacific time we'll be on. All right.
Sounds good. And look out for that LaMelo Ball and De'Aaron Fox matchup tonight. That's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, right. I'm looking forward to it. It's always fun, and the place should be jumping tonight. No question about that.
No
All right,
doubt.
buddy. We'll talk to you in a couple hours.
All right. Thanks, Grant.
All right, good stuff right there from Rhino. Really love everyone being here. Do me a favor, if you have not already, hit the like button. Also, if you have not subscribed, please do so. It would mean a lot to me. Well, I'll tell you right now, I don't know what is for dinner at Ryan's house, but I know the food will be cold when it is served. That's pretty evident. You know what I'm saying? That's for sure. Oh, 4 a.m. for me. These games are hard to catch. Love it. Is that and forgive me, are we talking Lithuania? Are you my Lithuania contact? We got people from all over the world joining us. We got the Philippines. We have got Chile with Eduardo. We have got, some other areas over in Europe. I believe the Netherlands. Germany. Good job right over there. Oh, with the U.S. Air Force. Hey, really appreciate your service. Great job. And tell all the men and women over there that we're grateful for them and their service. And happy holidays and Merry Christmas to everyone. Good job. Good job. Really, thank you very much for everything you do. You're awesome. All right. So we got Germany, and it's great. All right. Man. Someone wants to know, am I taking a nap before the post-game show? No, I'm going to go actually work out. Then I'm going to go for a swim. And no, I'm not. No. No nap. No nap. How's it going? It's going well. You know why? Because I'm a Giants fan, and they finally got a big win. So how am I doing? I'm doing good. Well, I'm doing well. All right. I know it was just a little joke, and my response was just a little joke. All right. So again, I will be with you after the game. Rhino also will be on, and we will be talking Kings basketball. Sea-Dog, you're right, buddy. I love the fact that Kayvon Thibodeaux finally looked like the guy the Giants used a first-round draft pick at number 5 overall. He was great last night. He was great. Really was. All right, I'll talk to you coming up in a little bit over on Listen App. and then right back here after the Kings game. Love your support. Hope you're on your way to a fabulous holiday and have a great week. And again, thank you so much for joining us right here. If you don't like that, with Grant Napier. So long, everybody.